Hi there. We're going to talk about what you should consider when you're sharing Google Docs. The first thing I like to think about is what is my purpose for sharing? That's going to help me decide how to give access and what type of sharing I want to use. And then in particular, I need to think about the who's. Who needs access for editing and who needs access for viewing? And it's important that you set up those different types of access depending on the situation of the person who needs access. So once you have the general idea of what your purpose is, who needs access for editing, who needs access to viewing, then you'll think about the best practices for just setting those degrees of privilege for folks. It's important, I think, to always set your access and visibility to the most private setting that allows for audience access. So you don't want to make it difficult for somebody to get to your document, but you also don't want to just make it so easy that anybody in the world could edit your document. That's not a good plan. And it's just important as you go to remember that different audiences and different purposes may require different settings. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to pull up what a sharing window looks like. So here we are. And what we'll see is, like all Google documents, that the default is set to private. Only you can access. And here I am listed. I'm the owner. And if I wanted to, I could add people by clicking right down here and I start to type their name. And up comes people that I could share with. And over here comes the different levels of privilege I could give them: editing, commenting, or viewing. When I share this way with staff members, colleagues, just other individuals outside our system, or with students, I'm going to share this way because they know they all have Google accounts. Because this way, when I share this way, the item I'm sharing will show up in their shared with me in their drive. And that's an important distinction here, okay? So by sharing via email address, then that will be a part of their drive under their shared with me, regardless of the level that I've given them, okay? Then it's up to me whether or not I want to notify them via email or that sort of thing. So that's up to us. So that would be one way to share. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect that and click share. It's going to say, are you sure you want to skip? Yes, that's fine. So now we see that Christine is listed here. And once she's listed here, I can now change her level of privilege, including giving her ownership of this document if I needed to, or I could get rid of her altogether and then she would no longer be able to view or access this document. So I could continue to add people this way by email address. I could even copy and paste in a bunch of email addresses, but I want to show you one other way that's an important way to think about sharing. So I've shared by email address here. This will show up in Christine's shared with me in her Google Drive. Notice that this part shared stays changed right up here. Shared privately. Only people listed below can access. Great, so I can see that. But notice I can change this right here. So let's see what happens when I click there. When I click there, what we have is we have the default setting of privacy checked. Only people explicitly granted permission can access. And then way up here, we have the exact opposite. Anyone on the internet can find and access, no sign-in required, which means somebody could do a Google search and maybe one day come across this thing that you're sharing. I'm going to suggest that there are going to be times when you select this one. There may even be times you select this one. This one's going to be more likely though. For instance, if we had something that we wanted our parents to see but not be able to change, and we didn't want to have them to sign in, so perhaps it's the class rules or it's the directions to the field trip or something like that. You want them to have an access to it, but you just want to give them the link and that sort of thing. You check this one. So when I check that one, let me just show you what happens. I'm going to click Save. Now it says anyone with the link can view, and here's the link to share. So I could send an email out to my parents, and with this link, I would probably make it a shortened URL or make it a hyperlink so it was a little bit more attractive. But once anybody has this particular link, they'll be able to access this document. However, only Christine would be able to edit it. So that's an important distinction. So let me go back in there and just talk about those options again. Shared privately is the most private, where you grant permission person by person. This one can come in handy though when we have that access where we want somebody to be able to view something but not edit it. These two, they look like they might be useful because they might limit it but still require a sign-in, and really this one is more likely. If you're going to be sharing in our district, just go ahead and add this one. If you need somebody outside of our district to be able to view it, use this one. I am going to point out that I have this set up with anyone with the link. Notice down here, anyone, no sign-in required, can view. If I wanted to, I could even change that to can edit or can comment. Very rarely would you ever do can edit, because that would allow for anybody with the link to do anonymous editing. However, this might be the case if you were just doing a brief brainstorm list with a group of random people. You wanted all the parents in your class to go to one document and write down 3 ideas for field trips. And you just wanted to make it really easy. All they're doing is writing down ideas. It's not a secure document, then that would make sense. But you want to, again, think about, like I've mentioned before, and we can see down here, different audiences and different purposes require different settings. So let's look at an example of something that you might share. So here's an example of Mrs. Peterson's 4th grade supply list. Think for a second about who needs access for this. Probably the parents in her class, right? So she wants her parents to be able to see this document. She doesn't need to share it with anyone. So let me call back up this sharing window. In this case, Christine doesn't even need access, so I'm going to take that out. Then I'm going to make sure this is anyone with the link. Let's double check and see what that, let me save this first. Then I can click here. Anyone with the link can view. That's perfect. I don't want parents, of course, to be able to edit my supply list. I just want them to be able to view it. So once I had done that, I would grab this URL, I would put it on my website or send it to them in an email and say, here's the supply list, and they'd be able to see the supply list. So that's your sharing primer. Now it's time to try out your knowledge with some of our quiz questions.